do you guys handle things when they're a big news item that's controversial? Like there was a lot of attention on Twitter during the election because of the Hunter Biden laptop story. The New York
we
Post.
had that too.
Yeah, so you guys censored that as well?
So we took a different path than Twitter. Basically the background here is the FBI, I think, basically came to us, some folks on our team, and was like, hey, just so you know, like you should be on high alert. We thought that there was a lot of Russian propaganda in the 2016 election. We have it on notice that basically there's about to be some kind of dump of that's similar to that. So just be vigilant. So our protocol is different from Twitter's. What Twitter did is they said you can't share this at all. We didn't do that. What we do is we have if something is reported to us as potentially misinformation, important misinformation, we also have this third-party fact-checking program because we don't want to be deciding what's true and false. And for I think it was 5 or 7 days when it was basically being determined whether it was false, the distribution on Facebook was decreased, but people were still allowed to share it. So you could still share it, you could still consume it.
So when you say the distribution is decreased,
it got shared.
How does that work?
It basically, the ranking in newsfeed was a little bit less. So fewer people saw it than would have otherwise. So it definitely...
By what percentage?
I don't know off the top of my head, but it's meaningful. But basically, a lot of people were still able to share it. We got a lot of complaints that was the case. Obviously this is a hyper-political issue, so depending on what side of the political spectrum, you either think we didn't censor it enough or censored it way too much. But we weren't sort of as black and white about it as Twitter. We just kind of thought, hey, look, if the FBI, which I still view as a legitimate institution in this country, it's like very professional law enforcement, if they come to us and tell us that we need to be on guard about something, then I want to take that seriously.
Did they specifically say you need to be on guard about that story?
No, I don't remember if it was that specifically, but it basically fit the pattern.
That is the important question, right. Exactly. Because if the FBI did, in fact, go to Mark Zuckerberg and say, this is Russian disinformation, you have the FBI essentially being involved in the election outcome, which you can go back to Comey and Hillary Clinton or whatever, but the suppression of information, that's taking to another level. A private company complying with the FBI's request to suppress information, I think, is pretty nuts. And from Zuckerberg's answer there, it's really not clear what happened.
Right, he says no, and then he's like, I'm not sure exactly.
I don't remember.
So we need a clear answer on that. He needs, let's produce the emails from the FBI. What did they say? Did they say, it sounded like they said there was going to be a bunch of misinformation, and here's the pattern that it's going to be. And then they saw this and said, this sounds like it fits the pattern. And then you had national security officials publicly saying this is Russian disinformation, so that connects those two dots right there. But the whole thing's creepy. And we were talking earlier about this French example where not this most recent election, but the previous one, Russia hacked, I believe it was a bunch of Macron emails, but it was emails related to Macron if it wasn't Macron's own emails, and dumped them into the French media and social media ecosystem. And there's really I don't think there's anybody that's seriously disputing whether or not Russia was the one behind this or why they did it. We're the only country in the world with a First Amendment. Mm-hmm. So France does not have a First Amendment, which means they can have laws about what you can and cannot say.
Oh, Prince Harry has been like, what is this First Amendment?
What is this First Amendment?
Yeah, and he's like on the board of the Aspen Institute's speech.
It is. I don't think we recognize in the United States what a treasure it is.
Absolutely. Because
we just assume that it's a natural part of society, but it's not. It absolutely is not.
Right.
Basically, every other government, has constrict speech in a much more significant way. And so they said in the lead up in the last couple of weeks of that election, you can't. They also have weird laws about you can't post polls, you can't have polls in the last 3 days and things like that. And so French media wouldn't touch it. Was basically banned from doing so, and social media didn't touch it. And so it was celebrated by a lot of people as a successful counter to Russia's attempt to meddle in that election, but also has deeply disturbing implications.
Right.
Because what if it was true? Like there were real things in there that people were denied seeing. That okay, it's not like everybody has a right to everybody's email, but once it's public,
right?
Wouldn't you want to know?
Well, and that's the thing. Once it's public, the genie is out of the bottle, and
they successfully kept that genie in the bottle. It's really weird.
And the French example is a good one because we were talking earlier about looking back now at Snowden, looking back at Assange, looking back at WikiLeaks, looking now at Ashley Biden's diary. A couple just pleaded guilty to stealing the diary and giving it to Project Veritas. So according to the New York Times, that proves the diary is real. The diary was largely ignored by most legacy media when it was first reported by Project Veritas. Ashley Biden allegedly
actually wasn't first reported by Project Veritas, right?
Maybe it was the New York Times.
Somebody else? No, it was another right-wing site.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, they leaked it,
sorry.
and James O'Keefe was reportedly very upset that it had leaked. Now, Ashley Biden allegedly wrote about taking, quote, probably not appropriate showers with my dad. Listen, like, the point of bringing this up in the context of the Zuckerberg conversation is that if you want to go for a French model, there is no clear way to know whether any of this is Russian disinformation. The intelligence community signed this letter where you had all of these high-profile, in many cases, liars saying the laptop looks like Russian disinformation. We now know there's good evidence suggesting it wasn't. It's still an open question what happened, as it is an open question, about other things that have leaked into the public before. Right. You've reported on some of them. You were mentioning whether this is where did this come from? We don't always have a clear answer to that question, and asking the government to take censorship steps when those questions remain open is anti-American.
Right, and if you say that we won't allow the publication of hacked or stolen documents, like that's a phrase you often see.
Yes.
Pentagon Papers were stolen.
Yeah.
Edward Snowden's documents were stolen.
I think we're all happy to have learned what we learned from WikiLeaks.
Right, and those were either hacked or stolen.
Yeah, we don't know.
Pretty sure.
Well, yeah, it was the phishing email, right? It was the.
Right.
We don't know. The thing is, the origins of it are not clear enough that we can make a completely definitive judgment
but it's hacked,
and say censor.
Right.
Yeah.
And then if you give that power over to a handful of entities that don't want, say, the Snowden documents out, then they can say these are stolen documents.
Yeah, exactly. And they're already weaponizing that nonsense. We saw it happen with the Biden laptop. And that's another part of this conversation about the credibility of the Department of Justice and the FBI. It doesn't just apply to the Mar-a-Lago raid. This is the credibility that comes up, and you have people who are working on the raid, who were working on the Russia collusion narrative. When these questions come up and there's no credibility left, and former people from the intelligence community are just like, oh, that laptop that's going to hurt the leading presidential candidate that we want elected over the man that we hate more than anything else. Yeah, that looks like Russian disinformation. You're getting into Banana Republic, world.
Right, and then you haven't even gotten to the question of actual fake news.
Right.
Like Trump appropriated the term fake news from actual fake news.
The real fake news stories.
Like there was Romanian companies and Estonian companies, Macedonian companies where you have kids. Some of them were like teenagers.
Yeah.
And there was one that was like made to look like ABC News.
Yeah, like Elvis still alive, found in North Carolina.
And like 70th murder victim of Hillary Clinton found, and then they put those on Facebook and they spread, and they were just making money off it. They weren't even trying. A lot of those were not even about trying to monkey with the election. They knew it would click, and they were making money off it, and Facebook was making money off it because they were paying Facebook to spread it. The whole thing's a mess.
It's all a mess. It's all a mess, and we're not equipped to deal with it going into, first of all, in the middle of a midterm cycle, going into a presidential cycle. So that's the good news that we're leaving you with here on Rising Fridays. As you know, Ryan and I are sort of eternal optimists, and we like to leave everybody feeling optimistic.
Feel good over the weekend.
Good. Yeah, happy weekend. Everything is broken, but enjoy it while you can.
Yeah.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe on that happy note so you never miss any of our optimistic content. And for those of you who like to listen while on the go, we're also available anywhere you listen to podcasts. Please make sure to check out the podcast. It's a great way to catch up with Rising Fridays. And on that note, we hope everybody has a great weekend.
Enjoy yourself this weekend. See you soon.
See ya.